I'd like to, both of you have spent a great deal of time in the UK also. Yusuf Saab had to leave India because of the threat to his life. Huh? But Prajwal went to Oxford. Does our country make sense? Does this country make sense?
Would you like to take?
Okay. If you talk about in the context of Kashmir, it can. But unfortunately, the people of Kashmir have yet to be given the sense of belonging. Because you missed many opportunities that you came in your way. And even today, when people are asking whether India makes any sense, they do talk about the problems that they have with the rest of the country. Yesterday, Mr. Dharawal was telling me about this Article 370. It's a link between Kashmir and rest of India. And he was saying that this is a pledge from a nation to the people of part of a nation. But you know what certain political parties are saying about Article 370. So if you really scrap or abrogate Article 370, so how would you go to the people of Kashmir and tell them that, you know, you belong to us and we belong to you? Because you are violating something that is the basis of your relationship with Kashmir. So likewise, whenever an incident happens in Kashmir and somebody gets killed, instead of saying that yes, this was he was killed or she was killed by mistake and it was an aberration or it was a blunder on part of A or B group, you try to cover up. You try to justify that killing. So I think that India can make a sense of, this can create a sort of sense of belonging. But unfortunately, you miss the opportunities that come in a good way. And it is happening for the last so many years, and it is happening today.
Prajwal, you famously have a Nepali parent as well as an Indian parent, right? Sikkim is a place like Goa, actually not unlike Kashmir also, which has been in a way annexed, right? It was a deed of conquest, right? Please.
Sikkim became a part of India in what is known as a smash and grab annexation. And my parents' generation are still making peace with it, I think. I think my generation has accepted it. It's perfectly okay. Although you will come across statements along the lines of, who was he? Oh my God, that Indian man there, seriously, what was he thinking? So there is still that sense of India being the other, the heartland being the other in many ways. But I think that with one more generation, I think we'll finally reconcile ourselves to having fully become a part of India. And maybe even call ourselves Indians. You know, there's the thing where people go, oh, he's an Indian, which is an Indian from Lucknow, Bihar, or the heartland. So, say there's a person from Nagaland you're talking about. So, hey, where's he from? Is he from India? No. He's from the northeast, is what the common refrain is. But does that answer your question in a weird, twisted, roundabout way? Well, mine is a complex case. My mom is Nepalese, Nepalese from Nepal. My dad is a Nepali-speaking Indian. Now, there is this big movement going on in India where the Nepali-speaking Indians are distancing themselves from Nepal to prove their Indian identities. All right, one of the movements that a lot of you are probably familiar with is the Gorkha movement, where the Nepali-speaking residents of West Bengal want a separate state. They want to isolate themselves from West Bengal and splinter into a separate state for Gorkhaland because, hey, we are Nepali-speaking people, what are we doing in a Bengali majority state? It makes sense. I am not going to distance myself from Nepal just to prove my Indian identity because I'm half Nepalese. And I am not going to splinter, I'm not going to invent another history, which I think a lot of people in India are doing in order to prove their Indianness. So it's okay. I mean, at the end of the day, you have a bloody Indian passport. So what if the person in Delhi says something along the lines of, hey, you speak Nepali, so you're from Nepal. Let them continue speaking. It does not matter. I mean, at the end of the day, your identity issues are, sometimes come from within you too. I mean, why do you care about whether or not the entire world, why do you care if the entire world asks you the question? Or, there's this underscoring of your nationality every time you mention your ethnicity. That's everywhere in the world. Oh, I'm Nepali, so does that mean you're from Nepal? Does that mean you're from, does that mean you've climbed the Everest? Does that mean you like tea? Does that mean you hobnob with the Yeti? And so on and so forth. Quite a ramble there.
That's absolutely right. I must say, I mean, for whatever it's worth, Goans also feel this a lot. This idea of there's some kind of idea of Indianness that's imposed on you, which is totally unfair. And I must say, in the case of the Nepalis, who represent India, they're a huge community. They are the mainstay of our army, right? And they're the main players on our football team. But it's a most bizarre thing that is continually thrown at them. They're not Indians, Nepali is an official language of India, and there are 10 million Nepalis in India, right? Isn't that right? Yeah, I wanted to say one other interesting thing is that this idea of those Indians, the Indians, I felt at home for the first time in Kashmir, as well as in Sikkim, when people started to refer to other people as those Indians. I'm somewhat different. It's an interesting thing. I would like to ask the question about these contested territories. Both Kashmir and Sikkim are in a way still contested, isn't it? I mean, when I met people in Sikkim, they were referring to those Indians, quite a strong way. Do you think this is going to continue into the 21st century?
Well, I think the central government has been flushing so much cash into Sikkim in the last 20, 25 years that people are okay with all the money lying around. I mean, it's a great way to buy people's loyalties in so many ways. I think, as I said, one more generation and I think we'll be perfectly fine. Yeah, thanks to the kind of money that's been floating around and will probably continue to float around because you don't want China pouncing on us with, everything.
As far as Kashmir is concerned, I mean, it's not just India and Kashmir, it's Pakistan is also involved. Because part of Kashmir is in Pakistan, and you have started constructing a wall. I mean, you are planning to construct a wall between two Kashmirs in Jammu area, which is being objected by everybody. There cannot be another Berlin Wall in this world. So I don't see any opportunity in the near future that Kashmir will be dissolved because it's not just between Delhi and even people in Delhi and people in Srinagar are not ready to talk. And the question of involving Pakistan and holding a tribe-by-tribe dialogue, I don't see any possibility in the near future. So it will take on what will keep going as far as Kashmir is concerned. It's unfortunate, but it's
kind of depressing. I must say that our own situation, which is 50 years old, doesn't seem to get better. I mean, many people here have a kind of a oppositional idea to the state. And it seems the same way with Kashmir and also.
Yeah, the people who can do it, nobody seems to be interested. Nobody seems to be interested. I mean, people are saying, I mean, politicians are saying that we must talk and we must try to address this issue through dialogue. But nobody is coming forward. Everybody has extreme positions, and the Kashmiri separatists, they say that we don't want to talk to India unless and until India says it's a disputed territory. And the people in Delhi saying that everything has to be done within the framework of Indian constitution, nothing outside Indian constitution. And Pakistanis are saying it's a genuine and of that country, and nothing can happen, and we will have to stick to the United Nations Security Council resolutions on Kashmir. So what I'm trying to say is, I mean, I don't see any possibility of Kashmir being addressed in the near future. Maybe something will happen after a decade or so, if not in the immediate future.
I want to ask about soft power. Soft power is actually, that's what, when I was in the Northeast, for instance, I found that this is quite, it's something very seductive, Bollywood, cricket, television, Indian media. These things have a kind of a reach which is quite, it extends beyond our borders actually. Do you think that might be the way forward? Is just soft power in India?
I doubt. And if a cricket match is played between India and Pakistan, and majority of Kashmir Muslims reside in Pakistan, and even when the cricket matches were held in Srinagar, between West Indies and India, people were with West Indies team, and the West Indies, they were surprised. So this could, but unfortunately.
What about Bollywood?
Bollywood, okay, you just enjoy it, and then the Indian actors and Indian actresses, but not beyond that. And many filmmakers turn to Kashmir for out of shooting purposes, and it stops there. Nothing goes beyond that, unfortunately.
I think because of the number of people who speak Nepali in Sikkim, who also understand Hindi very well, Bollywood is a big way to establish a sense of belonging with the country. But again, I don't think that would apply to states like Meghalaya, Mizoram, Nagaland, and I do not know if Bollywood is big in any northeastern state other than Assam. I'm not sure about Assam either. Oh, okay. Yeah. So, but I think Bollywood has a role to play. I do.
Yeah. I must say also the new generation of writers like a Prajwal or Chetan who's here. I mean, these are books which have a tremendous national impact. It's about Sikkim. His book is about, and your novel is also about Sikkim. But they are something which are universal. These connections are being made. It's happening less in the case of Kashmir, though, isn't it? There's kind of a growing alienation. Is that true? Is it becoming worse?
Alienation is there. I mean, if something good happens and the level of alienation comes down, and suddenly you have an incident. We had problems in 2008, 2009, 2010, and again you are back to square one. And I found it about this Bollywood, and recently, about a couple of weeks back, there was a shooting going on within the campus of Kashmir University in Srinagar. And the scene was said that they had to hoist Indian tricolor. And the students, about 200 students, they objected to it. We can't do it in Srinagar. So the producer did that, we had to pack up and leave, and then we will do it somewhere else. So you get the things of such. I don't see literary work or Bollywood or cricket very good as well as the sense of belonging is concerned in Kashmir and the rest of the country. Things are not. The level of violence may have come down, but the sentiment is there, and there's an until you address the sentiment, the way you want to do it. I said earlier that nobody seems to be willing to try to address the issue the way it should be.
Yeah, you know this. I must say, following social media in the last since I went to Kashmir, I spent a lot of time now connecting with other people via the internet. I must say that the younger generation become more, in a way, radicalized, more distant. Distancing themselves from an idea of India, which actually you feel is not going to happen in Sikkim, a generation you were saying.
I think we'll be fine. I mean, you go to Sikkim now and just look at how the Independence Day is celebrated there. There's a lot of fervor and enthusiasm, the donning of Nehru hats and you know, throwing of rose petals on the governor's feet and everything. I've always been curious about what Independence Day celebrations in Goa and in Kashmir are like. I mean, can you enlighten us? Are they sort of similar?
The chief minister and people like that celebrated.
Okay.
We didn't get the Goans didn't get independence on 15th August 1947. The Goans were liberated in 1961. So our history is different, and the connections are different, and in fact our ways of belonging are quite profoundly different from that. We do face this problem of this nationalist ideal. It's imposed on us, right? We're supposed to believe we got our liberation, but in fact we didn't. And the Goans were occupied by the Europeans until 1961. You know, so it's a completely different thing. We have our own Liberation Day, 19th December, and that is the day that the Goans do celebrate. In fact, it was a popular movement here, you know, and if there was an election or vote in 1960, for instance, he would have voted to join India. I must say his grandfather and mother are prominent members of the freedom brigade, and but that's how Goa got its liberation, was completely different. That's why I keep asking this question about ways of belonging. How do we all, you from Kashmir, him from Sikkim and Nepal, and myself, how do we kind of make a coherence out of it? Is it even possible?
I think it's okay to belong in different ways. And I think it's okay not to belong at all too. I think it's perfectly fine. I mean, instead of it being thrust on you, I think it's okay not to belong to India. I think it's okay to be Indian and to feel alienated. I think it's fine. It happens everywhere in the world. And you know, the minority population gets oppressed every so often. It gets ill-treated every so often. But perhaps if we consider the idea that it happens everywhere in the world and we are the only ones, we'll belong in a better way. And even if we don't want to belong, I think it's okay.
As far as you said about the Independence Day celebrations, I wanted to make one point earlier, is that when I talk about alienation, I talk about Kashmir and Kashmiri Muslims, the majority of the country. And when this Independence Day or Republic Day is there, you will see huge participation from Jammu and in Ladakh also. So basically, it is a problem of Kashmiri Muslims. They are not happy with India, and the sense of alienation with their religion is huge. And you talked about the social media, Facebook, Twitter, stuff. How people express themselves. You must have been following that. I mean, on every single issue, the divide is very often and visible and clear. So again, I would say that I don't see any hope. I don't see any hope that this will not be there, say, 5 years or 10 years, unless and until you try to address the issue. So I think that people of Kashmir have to be given up. In the beginning, I said that there were many opportunities that came your way, but you missed them. I don't know what you are going to do in the future.
Friday at this festival, we're going to ask this question again about ways of belonging, and we will continue to do that. Yusuf Saab, your message is a bit depressing, but I accept it because it's factual.
Yeah,
and I know
been
the
to
truth.
Srinagar and you.
I went there, I spent a month there.
I don't want to hide anything.
No, yeah, and he's absolutely taking the word. Yes, please.
Thank you. Thank you for letting me. I'm sorry, but I'm a little surprised that both the speakers, for example, Sikkim, the Nepalese section of Sikkim has overrun Sikkim. The Lepchas are out. The Lepchas are Buddhists. It is they who are complaining. I'm a member of the National Commission for Minorities and I went to Sikkim for, well, quite a long tour. And the Buddhists were totally dissatisfied with the government. And the Sikkim government is trying to develop a bridge with, of course, the people who were agitating for Gorkhaland. I have nothing against Gorkhaland. But there it is. Ethnicities are a very strong pull for all of us. And when Mr. Jamil talked, you will recollect he only talked about the valley. Jammu never came into his thinking, nor did Ladakh.
That's not fair. That's not fair.
I said that.
No, he mentioned Jammu.
I said that. You didn't say Jammu. But we have to think of that also, and the pundits who have been driven out. So it's a very complex and a complicated situation, which I suppose can't be unraveled in half an hour. Thank you.
True. I want to also hope you have all met Mr. Daruwala, K.K. Daruwala, eminent poet of India, also a novelist. And Mr. Daruwala is also #2 at Raw.
I have a question to Yusuf Jamil Saab. Jamil Saab, you talked about this sense of alienation, especially in the belly. So what is the reason behind this alienation? Has it developed over the years, or was it right from the beginning? It was
I did mention about every day you have an incident. Every day you have an incident, and then when an incident that takes place, how you react to that. I mean, how you, if somebody gets killed in the street of Srinagar, so, and if he or she has been killed by the security forces, if he and she has been killed by the militancy of Malaysia, yes, this was a militant act, and everybody accepts that. When a person is killed by security forces, you try to cover it. This was an incident of crossfire, nobody killed her, and it's false, or even if you have circumstantial evidence that the security forces killed, you try to cover it. This happens. It's an aberration, and I mean, you could have said yes, simply yes, this was a mistake, and you people belong to us, and we are sorry that the guy has been killed. When you don't say that, the level of alienation goes up.
You mean that the fault lies with the handling of the situation?
Yes, okay, definitely, you're right. We're running out of time a little bit, but I totally agree with Mr. Jamil. After 3 days in Srinagar, I myself felt extremely upset, at the kind of military presence that there is, and a very aggressive, insensitive military presence. I mean, India is mishandling the situation extremely badly. Let's not even pretend. There's one more comment, but also I would like to invite Meena Kandasamy, who's finally shown up. She will speak a little bit also. Please, Meena. Meena is one of India's leading younger poets, and she's also written a wonderful novel, which is going to be out soon. You had someone in the back had a question. One more question, and then I'll come to you. You joined us very late.
No, the bus came late.
The bus came late.
I was up from 7 waiting.
Meena very strongly represents two identities, which I've not even discussed this with you. But Meena is Tamil, and she feels very strongly about the situation in Sri Lanka as well, right? As well as Meena has very powerfully written a Dalit woman identity, Isn't that right? In your book, is that fair? So, Meena, what we're talking about with Yusuf Saab as well as Prajwal, does our country make sense? Can all of these highly disparate ideas and voices kind of fit together?
I think that, at least to me, this is quite a very divided thing because you come here on a platform like this, you're personally identified as an Indian writer, or how do you cast yourself, or how are you seen from the outside? So there's no way that you escape India. And at the same time, like, how do you look at India very, very clinically as a Tamil? The kind of alienation that we face with the Indian state, or the Indian state's interference in Sri Lankan Tamil issues. And so I think I would be very close to Charu Mazumdar's line on that, like, in which I think he's basically rephrasing Lenin and saying that India is this present house of nationalities. So in one angle, we all are different nationalities, and we all are, together because of, well, let's say, the colonial, whatever the British left back, but also because this is now an administrative unit or whatever it is. But at the same time, I think that if you have to reimagine India, I don't think it's going to be very easy if we just have a separate Tamil Nadu, a separate Mizoram. It's all very good to envision and fight for, and while we understand the necessity of all of these struggles, because the idea of a national struggle shouldn't come from just the idea that we are Tamil, but also because you're fighting imperialist forces and things like that. But also I think that what brings us together as a nation, whether we are women or whether we are Dalits or whether we are the oppressed caste or whether we are Tamils or any of the other minorities like Kashmiris or not even Kashmir but Mizoram or anywhere else, the Goans. I think that the fact that we resist this hegemony, the fact that we resist, there's this culture of resistance and this culture that we all are opposing the center. That should bring us together, or that should be the alternate idea of India. The fact that we all are in a position to certain kind of hegemony, to certain kind of oppression. I think there we can find the hopes for what could be the understanding of a nation, or especially I think sometimes it gets extremely depressing because while you don't even have to be an extreme left or Naxalite or Maoist to say this, but the kind of treatment that migrant workers get. For instance, there are like at least 50 lakh migrant workers in Kerala, which has a population of 3 crores, and the kind of treatment the migrant workers are treated to people from Bihar and Bengal, or what happens if migrant workers in Tamil Nadu die, construction workers, and you look at them and you don't think that they're treating them as Indian citizens or fellow citizens at all. So while it's very glossy, this idea of India, the fact is that for the working class people, what is it translating to? Do they really have the same privileges that somebody like a writer, or writers are not really the most privileged, or that business people would enjoy? I don't think so.
I'm so sorry we have to kind of end our session now, but that was last but not least, Meena Kandasamy. I think that we're starting with some questions, and every day we're going to discuss ways of belonging, different ways of belonging. And hopefully, towards the end, we will come to some kind of understanding of what we all face in a way. Right? We come from very different kind of backgrounds, but we all belong to this country, and we have to make it sense. We have to make sense out of it, some way or the other, or maybe not. Maybe it won't make sense. Thank you so much for attending the first session of the Goa Literary Festival.